Who we are, who we were, and who we're destined to become are all reflections of the stories we tell, of gods and devils from tales of the heart to those of fear and foreboding. Stories shape us in the world we live in. Myths, folk tales, and even religious parables all define our cultures and beliefs. In each episode of Faith and Fear, we will dip our toes into the comparative narratives spanning the globe, considering the concepts and archetypes common to us all. Enlay, shalom and prazir, hello and peace. It's a pleasure. Thanks for following me down the rabbit hole once again in my journey to better understand the stories and beliefs that shape us. Winter bites with its teeth, or lashes with its tail. Montenegro proverb. The holidays are upon us, and more importantly, so are the winter months, a stressful time of year, and traditionally one of danger, hunger, even death. It's a time when the struggle for survival was its most severe, so the very nature of the holiday season is no stranger to horror or fear. If you missed my Christmas episode last year, please do check it out. You'll quickly become aware of the numerous creatures used to threaten people, especially children, into behaving. So yes, Christmas is very much creepy, but don't take my word for it. Listen to someone far more knowledgeable than myself. I've brought you a very special guest, one whose work I'm sure many of you have no doubt seen. So snuggle up in front of your fireplace, or wrap yourself in a blanket for safety and warmth. Then listen in while I bring you Creepy Christmas with Jeff Belanger. Today, I would like to introduce Mr. Jeff Belanger, a well-known author, adventurer, and storyteller. In addition to all of that, he's also an established ghost hunter, an Emmy-nominated host, writer, and producer of the PBS series New England Legends, which you can find on Amazon Prime. Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm good, CE. How you doing?
Good. I can't complain. The weather's a little dreary here, but other than that,
Oh, that's good because it's a dreary time of year.
most definitely.
Are you in the holiday spirit?
I'm getting there, slowly but surely. I'm getting there.
Just give me a few minutes. We'll get you all the way there.
I'm looking forward to it.
Good. Me too.
Looking over your body of work, which includes writing and researching for every episode of the Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures, as well as appearing on numerous radio and television shows, could you briefly touch on what inspired your fascination with ghosts, monsters, and aliens?
Yeah, so I grew up in an old New England town, and from a young age, I was kind of exposed to friends telling me that their houses were haunted. And I also grew up in the town next to Ed and Lorraine Warren, so I knew them since I was like 13 years old. They've been featured in, of course, the Conjuring movies. They're more famous now than they ever were when they were alive.
Wow.
And so I was kind of around that stuff. And then I went to school to be a writer, and I started writing for newspapers and magazines, and I loved features. I was always never a news guy, just a features guy. And around Halloween, you go looking for these stories. And I love history. So talking to people, finding out their experiences, and just seeing it all come together turned into articles in newspapers, and then eventually to a website, and then started writing books, and then started working in television. And it's one of those things where it's a career that I could never have planned. I just sort of woke up one day and realized that this is what I do. And then I figure once you start going down the rabbit hole, don't go halfway. You know what I mean? Like, get in there, keep going.
Right.
And so I didn't stop with ghosts. I said, well, shoot, one person's ghost is another person's alien, is another person's demon, is another person's coincidence. And I said, well, what do these things have in common? What sets them apart? And then it just led me into this like incredible journey where I'm fortunate that for a living I get to explore things that make me curious, and I think make a lot of other people curious. These are the big questions.
It sounds a little insane, but I'm sure it was probably a lot crazier experiencing it firsthand. So I can
Yeah.
only imagine.
Yeah. No, it was not, I mean, it starts with like a newspaper article, and this was back in the mid 90s. So it's been a while now, and then, I started this website and it started getting more traffic. And then I pitched a book and I got a book deal, and I left a really good job in tech to write this book. And I thought, all right, I'll write the book and then I'll go get another job, because books don't pay much, not enough to live on. And then, I got another book deal and I picked up freelance work. And then the next thing I know, I just sort of evolved into this. And it's so much fun, though, to explore the world through like the monsters and ghosts and legends that I think we sort of take for granted, that are as much a part of our history as anything else.
Absolutely. Well, I brought Mr. Belanger on today to talk about creepy Christmas, as I feel he's more or less an expert on the matter.
I guess as one could be, right? I mean,
Right.
who else would make that claim?
It's
Yeah.
funny because most people don't usually think creepy when they think Christmas, yet together they seem to work fairly well. Why do you think that is?
So the funny thing is, for most of my career, people have thought of me as a Halloween guy. That around October, I'm booked up doing interviews. I do a lot of talks, a lot of story time, story presentations all over the place in October. And I've always said, Halloween, I get it. We like to talk about ghosts and scary things, but ghosts don't really kill you. Christmas, however, Christmas. These monsters that lurk at Christmas time are lethal. They literally kill children. And not
Absolutely.
just the bad ones, sometimes the good ones. Halloween, you might get spooked, but Christmas, you could die. And it all started for me. It was years ago. I was hanging my wreath on the front door while I was decorating my house for Christmas. And I was feeling pretty Scroogey. I was just like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I, I'm going through the motions. My dad put a wreath on our front door when I was growing up, and I think it's pretty, it's festive for the season, but why the wreath? Why the evergreens? Why December? Why? And so I started looking into those answers, and it led me to a literal and figurative, like super dark place. And I said, holy cow, this is the most frightening holiday of the year, bar none. Halloween can't hold a candle to Christmas when you're talking about fright and scare factor and everything else. And so what I found, the way I learn best is I like to take a thing and then smash it on the floor and break it into tons and tons of pieces and try to figure out how it works and then put it all back together again. And that's pretty much how I approached the holiday of Christmas. I absolutely destroyed it and then rebuilt it from the ground up. And it actually means more to me now, because without the darkness, which is such a huge part of this, I don't think we can have the light and the redemption, which is also a huge part of it. And it's there's a lot we can learn about ourselves.
It's funny that you bring some of that up, because last year I actually did a whole episode on some of the Christmas monsters from around the world, aka anti-Santas.
No, they're not anti-Santas, but go on. I interrupted. Forgive me. I'll correct you in a minute.
I'm sure you're more than knowledgeable about more than a few of those creatures. Do you have any favorites?
Yeah, so the reason I jumped in and said they're not the anti-Santa Claus is because if you look back at some of these wonderful monsters that have been lurking around the Christmas season, they are cohorts of Santa Claus. They're not the enemy. They're not the anti. Like, these guys work together. This is good cop, bad cop.
Right.
They both serve a role. And that's what I love about it. And, one more thing before we get to the monsters, you have to put this holiday into a context of the time of year, right? Like, it's all about the winter solstice. It's the shortest day of the year, like the least daylight. And the further north you go, sometimes the sun doesn't even rise, and imagine you live in the Nordic countries centuries ago, and you're worried if the sun will even return. You're worried if you have enough food to survive the winter. You're worried about everything. And you hear this strange noise, right? You hear this screeching sound through the trees that you don't hear in the summer because the trees have leaves and so on. and you look out at the landscape and everything is dead, it is absolutely a time for fear. And it's no wonder these monsters lurk around the winter solstice. So as far as all the various monsters, I mean, there's so many. Krampus, of course, is a favorite, but I feel like that's low-hanging fruit.
Right.
This guy was huge, and Krampus is very much like a devil character. One cloven hoof covered in fur. He's got chains wrapped around him. He carries a basket or a burlap sack to put all the naughty children inside. And he comes on December 5th. That's Krampusnacht. And so you tell all your kids, hey, you better be good, because December 5th is Krampusnacht. It's the night of Krampus, where he's coming. And if you hear the chains, he's coming for you. And if you survive till December 6th, it means you were a good kid and you're okay for another year. And that's St. Nicholas Day, December 6th. And St. Nicholas can then come and bring you presents. But if you look at some of the old postcards that would depict Krampus, a lot of times St. Nicholas is with him, right? They might be literally like in the same sled. Like there's Santa, St. Nicholas driving, and there's Krampus riding, shotgun, because they both have a job to do. But yeah, he's a monster. And I love that he's making a comeback thanks to, a number of things. I mean, one could argue that the Grinch, Dr. Seuss's Grinch is a sort of throwback to Krampus. But then also, like, there was the Hollywood movie a few years ago, and there's a Krampus festival here in New England where people dress up as Krampuses, and it's amazing. And I love that. I love that this darker side is making a comeback through popular culture. But that's just one. I mean, there's so many others.
Right. One of my favorites has always been Grilla and the Yule Lad.
Mm-hmm. Iceland. Yeah, all from Iceland. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely
Grilla's brutal, though.
Yeah, most definitely. She's definitely on the more violent end of the spectrum, and her sons are a little more comical in comparison.
You mean the Yule Lads?
Yeah.
So here's the funny thing. I know they get tied together. I'm not sure in the folklore if they're literally related or if it's just related by season and everything else. They show up around the same time. But Grilla is, what makes her different from Krampus? Krampus is looking for naughty kids. If you're bad, you have to worry. Grilla could go after anybody, right? Like she goes after babies, and no child is safe. She comes down from the mountains, and she's this troll-like woman, with 13 tails and this perpetual bad mood, just looking for kids. The Yule Lads, which I know they've called her children. They've also been like her cohorts or whatever. The Yule Lads are pretty funny, and they show up on different days. There's I think there's 13 of them or something. Yeah. And so the Yule Lad, and they come and they mess with you, right? They'll mess with your sheep. They'll steal your candles. They'll steal your meat. They'll lick your pots, your spoons, steal your yogurt. Like each one has his own little task, shows up on a different day, stays for 2 weeks, and then leaves. And I love that. We've got to watch out for a host of characters. But Iceland also gave us the Yule Cat, which is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Yule Cat is looking for you to have new clothes, which I think is which is great, right? You have to have new clothes, or the Yule Cat will come along and eat you. You have to show your new wares to the Yule Cat, or else.
Well, knowing the reasoning behind that, it kind of makes sense, because if you didn't have new clothes, it's kind of an indication that you were lazy, from what I was reading, because if you did your work, you did your job or whatever, most of the time you were gifted with new clothes as payment or as like compensation for at the end of the year. And not having new clothes, as I said, is basically an indication that, well, you weren't doing what you were supposed to be doing all year. So the Yule Cat in turn targets you for punishment.
That's right. Yeah. And you have to have those new clothes to show. And it speaks to the economy too, right? You got to buy new clothes. You got to keep the economy going, which is such a huge part of the holiday today. I mean, you could scoff at that, but hey, we need our economy as well. So if this Christmas holiday fuels the economy, it is a benefit at the end of the day. But yeah, so many of these dastardly creatures have been not totally lost to time, but really pushed to the background, because we've just absolutely Disneyfied Christmas. We got rid of Krampus really only like in the 19 teens when Santa Claus became the central figure. And the only repercussions for Santa Claus was like sticks or coal in your stocking, which, by the way, depending on the time of year and depending, in the era you grew up, sticks and coal could keep you warm. You could burn that on a winter night. That actually might be a decent gift. But we sort of lost the consequence. We got rid of the monsters and we kept just the reward. And I think the holiday lost a lot of its soul, which is unfortunate. But it's sort of always been that way. There's always been that struggle between like the commercialism of it and then also the, what's the true meaning of it. And I think if you think about it, our modern understanding of this holiday is so defined by Charles Dickens, who wrote one of the greatest ghost stories ever in A Christmas Carol, right? I mean, that story truly defined what it means in like a secular way. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't about Christianity. It was just about like redemption. We all, when we read the book or watch the play, we know who Scrooge is. Scrooge is us. I am Scrooge. I will say it. I'm Scrooge. I get bitter as the year goes on. And then here comes this one day where I have a chance to kind of like be childlike again. If I can be haunted by my past and what the potential future may hold, I can be redeemed in that one day and soften my heart, give to charity, give to others, goodwill toward everyone. And, God bless us one and all.
You're awesome, because I was actually going to bring Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol up. I'm very much an avid fan of that whole narrative, and because of that, I guess you could say I'm accustomed to ghosts and the Christmas holidays being an entertaining pairing, you could say. And every year I seek out and watch just about every version I can find. It's probably my favorite.
It's timeless. It's timeless. And each character is so, I mean, we know every character, right? I mean, we know Scrooge, and Jacob Marley is really the redeemer. This guy from the past who said, "Hey, Scrooge, I was your only friend, and look what happened to me. You're on the same path. I've procured this night for you, this night of three ghosts, spirit of Christmas past, present, and future. And if you go through this, you have a chance. And I worked on this for you, even though it's too late for me." There's sort of like this selflessness from beyond the grave. And sometimes we need to be scared straight in our lives. And that's what these ghosts offer us. They offer us this connection to our past and to our present and to, what comes next. But that story, you got to remember, when that came out, Christmas was really not a big deal anywhere. It was not like this huge holiday. It was just another day. But Dickens like defined this thing of what it could be, and it spread through Europe. And then Dickens literally brought it to America. He brought it to Boston in 1867 after the Civil War, because Dickens had said he loved America, but he would never visit America as long as slavery was still legal. And once the Civil War ended, America's trying to, put itself back together again. And he knew America needed his story. And he came here in December of 1867, stayed in Boston, and started doing readings of A Christmas Carol. And Boston, it's not lost on me. Boston was literally the city that banned Christmas, right? The Puritans literally banned it. There was a 5 shilling fine if you were caught making merry or dressing fancy on Christmas, because they viewed the holiday as satanical, literally satanical. That's the word, right?
I was going to bring that up because I'm aware that at one point Christmas was illegal in at least parts of the states, and that they banned it for that reason.
Yeah. Well, so because the reality is that the holiday is completely pagan. Like, all of its roots are pagan. It comes from Saturnalia in Rome, right? It comes from Yule, the winter solstice festival, right? So all these roots are pagan, but then Christianity comes along and kind of like, applies Jesus's birthday to it. The funny thing about Jesus's birthday is we have no idea when he was born, and there's only one passage in the Bible that gives us even a clue as to when Jesus may have been born, and that passage is Luke chapter 2. If you want to keep score, and it basically said shepherds were living out in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. That's our only clue. And in Bethlehem, there are 3 seasons of the year where shepherds would stay out all night with the flock. and that would be spring, summer, and fall, which means the only one we can rule out is winter. So, I mean, that's according to the Bible, and I'm not, I'm not pro or con. I'm just sort of
No, you're right.
putting
You're right.
it together. Yeah, like of how it came together. So, so really, they sort of Christianized, and it was really the Emperor Constantine who was trying to unify Rome under one God, and he said, "All right, I can't beat Saturnalia. It's this raging party that's been going on for centuries with gift giving and orgies and drinking and feasts." He's like, "I'll add 2 more days onto it because the solstice always fell within Saturnalia. We'll make the 24th Christmas Eve, 25th Christmas Day. We've got this one God, and turning a 6-day party into an 8-day party was something that Romans could get on board with." And so that's sort of where that started. And then all these other traditions, which had more to do with the solstice as opposed to anything related to Christianity, just sort of got incorporated and Christianized over the centuries.
Right. Yeah, I've heard a lot of that before. And I know as far as, the whole actual Christmas, Christ's birth generally being around either spring or fall. So it's not, well, it may be new to some of the listeners, but I think a lot of people are more aware of some of those origins than they used to be. So it's
sure.
The information is definitely out there. Right.
Yeah, and it does, and it's okay. Like, hey, I mean, I don't celebrate my birthday on the day, right? Sometimes we wait for the weekend, right? My sister's birthday is 3 weeks after mine. Sometimes we would get together like in the middle and celebrate them both with our family together, and like, so what? Like, who cares? You can commemorate a birthday any day you choose. I have no problem, with that whatsoever. But I think we need to understand, how this all sort of pieced together, because we have a lot of revisionist history in our country now. We seem to want to redefine things that are pretty well defined before, define them in a different way. And it doesn't make it wrong. What I love about holiday traditions is that we get to redefine them every year. It's not even every generation. Like this year's Christmas can be different than last year's. If you choose to, go to a movie and eat Chinese food, have at it, right? That's all yours. If you choose to, just donate to the poor, absolutely. If you want to bake cookies, like you are allowed to make it your own each and every year. And I think when you incorporate some of this darker stuff and understand we're talking about the winter solstice, when the sun is going away, when it's scary, and when the screaming sounds you hear outside, is that the wind through naked trees, or is it, the vanquished enemies of the Norse god Odin, crying out for help? And so we put our evergreens over our windows and doors so the prickly needles keep those spirits out, because we look out at the landscape and we see that everything is dead, that winter is so strong it can kill everything, the flowers, the grass, the trees, but it can't kill the evergreen. The evergreen must be magical because it somehow can stand up to winter. And so we bring these trees indoors to hope that their magic sort of rubs off on us and protects us from winter as well.
Right. And it's so interesting when you actually do take the time to learn the origins of some of these traditions and even rituals.
Yeah. No, just one more thing about the evergreen. My favorite part about it is that as an offering to the sacred evergreen, the Norse people would gut their kills and they would lay the entrails around the around the evergreens, these bloody intestines. And that's garland. When you're stringing popcorn around your Christmas tree, you're reenacting laying entrails of slain animals around the sacred evergreen, which I love that. Like, how cool is that? I say this year, go for a traditional Christmas, use real entrails instead of stringing popcorn.
I don't think most people will probably do that, but it's
probably not.
It's an interesting thought, at least.
Keep it, go back to the roots. Let's keep it original this year. Why not?
Right. It's so amazing when you think about how things have changed and how they've become conflated with one another. And you've pretty much won over the origins of Christmas and how they're in and of themselves a little creepy. Because I was actually going to ask you that, so I'm glad that you just went right into that. And
yeah, it's a scary time, I mean, so think about it too, and the goodwill toward men, right? So in the Yule festival in the Nordic lands, everyone would drink from the same drinking horn because that signified that we're all equals, at least right now. Because I know if my roof collapses under the heavy snow, I might have to run to you and live in your house until the spring. And by the way, same for you, right? And so we look at each other and we feast together and we share drinks together because we know the winter is the season you have to survive and we have to get ourselves through this. And it's scary. And we hibernate and we have a lot of time to share stories by the low firelight and so on. And so we light candles to light the night and we put these lights out because there's so much darkness, literal darkness, that we have to illuminate it. And then the light becomes significant. It becomes a metaphor for what we need to do to get through these hard times that come seasonally when you hope you have enough food to make it.
Absolutely. And most people nowadays don't generally think of winter and the holiday seasons in such a way, but winter traditionally really was a season of death because, as you said, that's the season where everything dies. And even people, if we weren't stocked up for winter and we didn't have enough storage or reserves, we could very much die just as everything else.
Yep. No, and you know what? We have it too good now. When we have an epic snowstorm, our snowplows pretty much have the streets cleared in a day or two. You know what I mean? And like you can get back out to the grocery store, you can get food.
Right.
Even 100 years ago, which is not that long. 100 years, from a evolution and human history standpoint, is nothing. 100 years ago, if you live out in a cabin in a remote area and there's 3 feet of snow, you could be locked in for weeks and weeks. And if you don't have enough food in there, if you didn't know that storm was coming, which you didn't because you didn't have, Doppler radar telling you about this storm or anything, if you're caught off guard, it could be lethal. I mean, it's a matter of life or death being prepared for winter, having enough wood to burn and enough meat to eat and enough, canned or whatever, preserved vegetables or to get you through. And so it's such a scary time. And I think that it's a celebration of that. And it's only very recently that we stopped making December the creepiest month of the year. Think of like one of the greatest poems ever, right? The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. I remember that bleak December, right? I mean, he sets that story in December because he knew that's the scariest month. He didn't set it in October. He set it in December.
Yeah, it's funny that was the first story that popped in my head, honestly.
Yeah, Poe's a master. So there's so many, and then I love how every country has like their own ancillary things. There was another monster. Have you heard of the Belschnickel from Germany?
Yes. That he was on my list.
Now, he's fun because what's cool about the Belschnickel is like this year it could be me. Next year it could be your turn. And what I get to do is the Belschnickel literally means Nicholas in furs. And his face is covered in soot. He's dirty. He's got this patchwork of furs, and he carries sticks in his hand. And he shows up to the house before Christmas. Could be a few weeks, could be a few days. So I might show up at your house, and I'd say, "Hey, CE, you got any naughty kids around here?" And you'd be like, "Oh, these two have been pretty good, but little Johnny over there, he's been a real bastard." And I go, "Okay," and I take Johnny in the backyard and I tie him to a tree and I beat his ass for you as a favor, right? And and I beat him, and I tell him, "Hey, you got a chance to get right before Christmas. This is your punishment. And next year it's your turn to beat my kids." So you can be the Belschnickel next year. Every year the community, kind of takes turns. And this character, I mean, if you've ever watched The Office, there was one episode where Dwight Schrute shows up because that's Pennsylvania Dutch country. Shows up dressed as the Belschnickel, and he was the consequence. He was the, hey. I'm going to beat you. You need to take your lickings, but then you can change your behavior and still have a chance to get presents from St. Nicholas.
Yeah, absolutely. Another interesting one that I found was Marie Lwyd.
Oh, Maddie Lode, the Maddie Lode, the Grey Mare from Wales. Yeah. So it's a Welsh tradition where people dress up as the Grey Mare, and they take a horse's head, a horse's skull, and they decorate it, and there'll be like two men underneath, like a horse costume. Someone is the front legs, someone is the back legs, and they go around from house to house singing and looking for food and preferably alcohol, right? You give them drinks, and it was sort of this small obscure thing but it's experiencing a renaissance. They have like Marilod festivals now in Wales again, where they're, people are dressing up as this character, singing their songs, making merry, going house to house, and it turns it into almost like how Halloween is like a begging night. It's the same thing. So you've got this gray mare that rises from the dead, and then goes house to house, and you don't dare not offer them your alcohol and your treats, because they won't go away unless you do, which is great. I should have been born in Wales.
Yeah, I definitely found that one fascinating. It was a little trippy at first, but it also seems kind of fun.
Yeah, and Krampus is coming back. Krampus festivals in Belschnickel.
Yeah.
For my PBS series, there's a house in Connecticut, one of these historic homes that you walk inside and it looks like it's 1790 kind of thing. And they decided, instead of having a Christmas festival with St. Nicholas, they bring in the Belschnickel every year. And this Belschnickel does not actually beat the children, so I don't mean to accuse them of being a little bit inauthentic, but but he's got the furs on and he's got the soot on his face and he carries the sticks and he tells the story of the Belschnickel. So maybe he's making a comeback too.
Maybe they need to switch it with like the foam bats or something. That way you could still be a little more authentic.
Yeah. No, I love it. I just, it's a time of year where, we're allowed to borrow from any tradition that we want. And this holiday, I know some people get upset that they believe it should be a religious one, but the reality is it's secular in so many ways, with religious overtones kind of layered in, and you are allowed to define it however you wish. I don't care if you're Jewish or atheist or whatever, like, have at it. Put up a Christmas tree. And that was never in the Bible. There's no Christmas trees in the Bible, but if you think they're pretty, put one up. Have at it. I mean, I like the idea of this holiday being inclusive, because the reality is the winter solstice, that affects everybody. It leaves no one out. 100% of all people had to deal with the winter solstice, the short days, the long winter, the cold nights. Do I have enough food? That was universal. And so the Yule festival was universal. The Saturnalia was for all people. It wasn't designated for just a certain religion. And so I hate to see this holiday become exclusive when the reality is all of its roots were inclusive.
Right. And I think it's also important for individual families to have their own traditions, like you said,
Sure.
adapt and adjust and, change things up what fits for you and yours.
Yeah, of course. No, absolutely. And that's but the reality is we get fed a script, from so many movies, so many stories, so many songs that sort of paint this picture of what the holiday is supposed to be. It's a lot of pressure. First of all, anytime you get families together, I don't know about your family, but man, oh man, sometimes it's a powder keg. You're worried about who's going to argue about what. And
just watch any of the Hallmark Christmas movies.
Yeah.
And there you go. That's, most Christmases aren't anything like those. So, do what works for you.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's funny what gets incorporated and what doesn't. So, for example, the song Jingle Bells, it's associated with Christmas. However, funny thing about it, Christmas is not mentioned once in the whole song. But the funnier thing is, and I'm a dad, I've got a daughter, and I remember watching her when she was like 5 years old singing Jingle Bells with a bunch of other 5-year-olds. But when you know what the song's really about, boy, oh boy, will that make you uncomfortable, because this song is truly about a booty call. That is what the song's about. Wow. I know.
I've never heard the origins of the song, so I'm interested in hearing.
Allow me, CE. So I brought up the lyrics in front of me just to sort of break it down. It was written in Medford, Massachusetts by James Pierpont, who was very pro-slavery and pro-Confederacy. In fact, he moved down south to support the cause. But, it's just sort of a footnote, but he's famous for writing Jingle Bells in Medford, Massachusetts. But here's the lyrics. Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh. Pretty straightforward. Over the hills we go, laughing all the way. So, you're out on a one-horse open sleigh riding through the snow, right? Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Pretty straightforward. It's the second verse where the things start to get R-rated, and then right on to X-rated. So forgive me. If you have young listeners, they should tune out now. A day or two ago, I thought I'd take a ride, and soon Miss Fanny Bright was seated by my side. So you have two people, a guy and a girl. Miss, she's single and she's hot. Everybody knows Fanny Bright is smoking. She's out there with you unescorted. It's just the two of you. So here's the part where it gets X-rated. The horse was lean and lank. Misfortune seemed his lot. He got into a drifted bank, and we got upsot. I'm sorry. If you have to bleep that out, you go right ahead. Upsot is an old-timey word for drunk. So like being smashed or wrecked or blotto. So upsot was an old-timey word for drunk, but also it means to be sort of inverted and turned upside down. And the fact that it says we twice, he's not talking about the horse and the sleigh. He's talking about him and Fanny Bright getting upsot.
Right.
And if you think, come on, I'm reading into it, allow me the next verse to prove to you that that's exactly what happened. A day or two ago, the story I must tell, I went out to the snow and on my back I fell. He's on his back. A gent was riding by in a one-horse open sleigh. He laughed as I there sprawling lie, but quickly drove away. Let me ask you something, CE. You roll up on a sled that's just flipped over with two people and there's no one else around. Wouldn't you get out and help? Right? Of course you would. You would get out and help. They might need a ride.
Yeah.
They might need some assistance. What if the sleigh is just fine, but the two people are inverted? You'd be like, whoa, sorry. And you'd quickly get out of there, right?
Yeah.
That's what happened. That is what's happened. And in the last verse, of course, he says, the ground is white. Go it while you're young. Take the girls tonight and sing a sleighing song. They're just basically saying, hey, it worked for me. Gents, try it. Get your sled. Go out there. Take a girl. No one will see you or bother you. And it's a song about a booty call. Taking a girl out there and getting frisky when no one watching.
That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
No, it's ruined. I know. And you're going to be somewhere and you're going to hear some little kid going, jingle bells, jingle. You'll be like, no. You can't sing that. That's R-rated.
Yeah, anyway, I will never hear that the same way. I know I've heard that a lot of songs do have some of the lyrics cut out, so you kind of don't know the original meaning of a lot of them. So it's interesting when you are able to go back and find out, oh, well, this song that you've been listening to and singing all of these years, this is what it actually means. This is what it was actually written for.
There's not too many songs that aren't about like sex.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
right. Like I mean, go back to Mozart all the way to like yesterday. You know what I mean? Like most songs have this undertone of like, boy, I sure would like to have sex. What do I need to do to get there?
And it's funny because you hear people say that now, like, oh, well, music didn't used to be about this back in the day. That's untrue in so many ways.
Yeah,
because I know just from my generation, the songs that we grew up on, hearing them in adulthood and listening to the lyrics, you're like, yeah, I had no idea what I was singing about when I was 10 years old. And even songs as far back as the 30s and the 20s, I know in one of my classes, we were actually listening to some of the songs that I can't think of the name of the artist off the top of my head, but some of the songs that they would sing, and they might not have been as blunt about the subject matter, but they were very much talking about exactly what you think they were talking about.
Yeah, darn right.
Yeah, so
that hasn't changed. Jingle bells, the song that like that's the most like known melody, like that and like Happy Birthday, right? Ding 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 ding. Everyone knows it. And it's about a booty call, and it's not about Christmas. Christmas is never mentioned. It just happens to be winter, riding in a sleigh, and you put bells on the sleigh because it's silent, because you have a horse and a sled moving at a pretty fast speed, and if you don't hear it coming, you could be in danger. So you would put those bells on the horse so you could hear it as a warning to people that are walking. But yeah, Christmas not mentioned once. Just Miss Fanny Bright getting upsot.
That makes so much sense. Well, I know the month of December is a very busy month for you, as you will be hosting your Creepy Christmas at various libraries. That sounds like loads of fun. Did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So, well, because of COVID, like half of them are virtual, so people can attend from anywhere. If you go to my website, you can see the whole thing. I mean, I think I've got like 12 or 13 dates for the first half of December, almost every night in December. It's a creepy Christmas show. I show some of the great old postcards of Krampus and Père Foutard from France, which we didn't get to talk about, but some of these holiday monsters and the stories behind them and how they sort of got incorporated. And it's really the whole story. We did a PBS special about creepy Christmas, and I love that this stuff is coming back slowly but surely, because these monsters, they never went away. They've just sort of been like hiding in the shadows, waiting for us. Right? It's up to us. We need to summon them. We need to say like, "Hey, I need you. I need you, Krampus. I need you in my life." And we do. I think we do need Krampus. We do need the Belschnickel. We need the consequence to sort of remind us that there are dark times, literally dark times, that we need to get through, and sometimes we got to get through them together. And there's nothing like a scary monster to unify us, to give us a common enemy, a thing to be afraid of. And so I think bringing some of these things back is not only a fun tradition, but it serves a greater purpose.
They're not entirely forgotten because I did cover Père Foutard, aka Father Whipper, last year.
Yeah, Father Whipper.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
Frau Perkta was another one that just as gruesome as Grilla.
So there's so many, and what happens is sometimes what you're finding is a super small regional version of a bigger monster, right? So like Bulgaria has like the Caraconchulus, which sort of similar to Krampus, except he's a shapeshifter, so he could turn into anything, like your Aunt
Oh, wow.
Edna. And so and he would show up on Christmas Eve. And so basically, if Aunt Edna's knocking at your door to come in, I wouldn't let her, because it could be the Caraconchulus who's shapeshifted. And if you let him in, he'll kill you. So you've got these regional versions with different magical abilities depending on where you're from and what you need at the time, all over the world. And I think it's just putting them all on the same stage is just so much fun.
Yeah, I love them. I loved learning about and just hearing different stories about every single one of them, because I find them almost as fascinating as you do.
Yeah, no, it's a great thing, and Saint Nicholas too. He's got his own story, and based on a real guy who did a great thing. This rich kid who was orphaned and spent his life giving away his wealth because it made him happy to give to others, and to give gold to people that were destitute and needed a little extra help or whatever, and was sainted for that. And that's worth celebrating. You know what I mean? I mean, those parts of the story, they're worth remembering and celebrating in spirit of generosity. These are all good things. So I kind of feel like when you know the whole story, you get to look at this holiday through a better lens. You get to look at it and not be so Scroogey. When you let the ghost of Christmas way past, not even your past, but like way back, haunt you a little bit, and then let your own ghosts haunt you a little bit, I think we have a chance to sort of like redeem ourselves and redeem the holiday, enjoy it for what it is, and maybe not stress it so much, but just sort of be like, yeah, I'm putting up the lights because it's dark at night, and I do want to be a beacon. I'm putting up the trees and the evergreens to keep the bad spirits out there and the good cheer inside, and protect myself and my family. And I'm telling these stories because it connects me to this thousands of years of history and lineage of people who had to, count on each other to survive the scary time that's coming. And scary times come, we know obviously that it doesn't have to just be winter. Scary times happen at any point, and the only way to get through it is with a little help, quite often.
I love that. Do you have any other scary holiday stories you'd like to share with us?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's so many. When you look at the whole big picture, I love, there's Italy's got the Befana, the Christmas witch. She's interesting. I wish I was Italian, because she shows up and comes down your chimney, leaves toys, and then cleans your house before she leaves. Like, I could use some help there. So that would be amazing.
Right.
Um, there's like, how do we sign up for that one? And then also, this was the Tomten from Sweden. That's a fun one because the Tomten, what's cool about it, he's like this house helper elf that helps you out, but he also keeps you in line. His job is, if you aren't taking care of the barn animals, if you're not taking care of your house and cleaning it enough, the Tomten could come and, he could like hit you, literally like hit you, smack you around to get you back in line. But he also helps you. The worst thing he can do to you is leave you, abandon you, be like, forget it, I quit, right? That's the worst thing that could happen. And all he asks for this service is that on Christmas Eve, you have to leave out this bowl of risengrot, which is this sweet, sticky rice pudding. And you leave that bowl out as a food offering for this helper elf. And he eats it and he's happy and he stays for another year, for the Tomten. And what's funny about him is that when you see the descriptions, and I promise you, if you've ever been in like a craft store or whatever, you've seen the depiction. It's like this little elf that's all hat and all beard and like feet underneath the beard, like it's just this little like troll-like creature. And when you look at the elf on the shelf, right? I mean, the elf on the shelf is like a straight up ripoff of the Tomten. He's the helper elf that's there watching you, making sure you do what you're supposed to do, disappearing when he needs to disappear, and then he asks for an offering. So, Elf on the Shelf is just an evolution of a very old story and idea from another, part of the country. And while leaving out a food offering for an elf might seem very pagan and foreign to you, until you think, oh, wait a minute, I leave out cookies and milk for Santa Claus. Right away, it's just same, we're already doing it. What's another bowl of pudding, to get a year of help?
That's incredible.
Do you have a tradition in your family?
Well, not so much. I mean, we kind of stick to the normal, quote unquote, normal stuff. We just do Christmas dinner, exchanging gifts, that kind of thing. We generally worry about the kids, kind of a thing, because most of us adults are,
Sure.
are like, bills. Everybody's taking care of bills.
Yeah.
Well, with my family, we usually do Secret Santa. That way, everybody doesn't have to buy for everybody. We kind of just stick with the adults buying one gift for another adult. So we kind of all do that way. And then everybody generally buys something for all of the kids. It kind of cuts back to some of the spending, and people aren't overextending themselves, because I feel like that's one of the things a lot of people do is they overextend themselves, and then they're paying for it for the rest of the year. And by the time Christmas comes back around, you're doing it all over again.
Which is funny because, like, this is exactly where we were 1,000 years ago, right? So the winter's coming and we have only so many supplies, in this case, money, right? It's a finite resource. It's not unlimited. And so, we want to feast, we want to celebrate together, but we don't want to use too much, because what if we starve? And so here, it really hasn't changed. It's just the circumstances have changed. We're not talking about like food and game that we have to go hunt. We're talking about like greenbacks and, and money in the bank. But it's the same principle of like, hey, how do we take care of each other? But how do we also like survive and get through this thing? Not stressed, not broke, not starving. Same as it was, man. It's all the same.
That's an incredible way to look at it. I hadn't even thought about it that way, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah. No, and hey, so let the holiday remind us. And I love that your family does that. Like, hey, how do we make this work so we don't go broke? Which takes all the fun out of it. It's no fun if you're given a gift going, wow, I'm going to be paying for this until September. I mean, that's not right. Joy. That's a obligation. And so you're right. Like, and so each family gets to define it, do what you can afford, do what makes you happy, and, and then redefine it each year that you have to, and that's how it goes. I love that. And I think that's how a lot of families look at this. What do we do to make this work for us? And then not worrying so much about what the people next door are doing, or what they're doing on the Hallmark Channel, or what they're doing on, these various movies and songs that are being played on the radio and all that other stuff. Like, just worry about yourself.
Absolutely. And you kind of touched on it already, that Christmas is Well, the holiday seasons are so many different things for so many different people. And I think as long as you and your family are sticking with what works for you, that's all that really matters. It doesn't really matter what everybody else is doing.
I'm trying to find the like the 8-foot inflatable Krampus to put out on my lawn. Like, where do I get that? Someone out there is missing a market segment that I would be proud to be part of.
That would be awesome. I'm sure you'd probably get some complaints from neighbors though, depending on where you live at. But yeah, I would get something like that.
My neighbors already know I'm kind of eccentric and weird. They would probably be like, "Oh, there's Jeff again." So we do have Krampus on the mantle this year, as opposed to Elf on the Shelf. So I'll be moving Krampus all around the house to keep my kid in line. You know, she's almost 15 now, so that's not as easy as it used to be. But you know, I still think a little Krampus can brighten up the spirits.
Well, there's also so many Nightmare Before Christmas decorations that kind of lean towards the eerie and the creepy. So it's not as uncommon now as it used to be.
It is, changing for sure, but I love it. I love all that.
Well, did you have anything else you'd like to share with us?
No, I'm thankful that I got to share some stories with you and your listeners, and I love that folklore and legends, and we just talked about Christmas ones today, obviously, but they're a connection. They're a literal connection to our past, to our communities, to our ancestors, and that is worth sharing. Folklore has worked the same way that it worked thousands of years ago. It just moves faster because of the internet. A story that I might just tell you in private over a campfire 500 years ago, now I might tweet and you might retweet. And then by lunchtime, thousands and tens of thousands of people have heard it. But those stories are touch on the biggest part of the human experience. You know what I mean? Like whether we're talking about ghosts, which is what happens after we die, or aliens, are we alone in the universe, or Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster, do we know every creature that walks the earth with us? These are the big questions that humans have been pondering since the beginning. And when we share these stories, we get to sort of ponder those questions together while leaving out all the dogmas and stuff of organized religions and not offending everybody. Just if you want to take it for just a story, that's fine. But if anything, it is a connection. But most importantly, it's a connection from one person to another when you kind of share these tales. And so I'm a huge proponent of telling stories to each other, whether it's something weird you experienced or a story you grew up with or something from your town or your community. Just great things happen when we share that stuff. So share the monsters of the holiday, if that's what does it for you, but share all your monsters, all your ghosts, all your scary things. Get them out in the open, in the street light where we can see them, and maybe they're just a little bit less scary.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. Well, like you, there's just something about all of this that I find absolutely fascinating. Holidays and horror are most definitely an entertaining mix. I look forward to seeing and hearing more of your work on that matter.
Yeah, thanks, C. Appreciate being with you today.
For now, I know you're a busy man and have other engagements, so I won't keep you any longer. Thank you so much for coming on, having this conversation with me, and sharing your creepy Christmas stories and thoughts with my listeners.
Thank you.
I think that will do it, Mr. Belanger. Best wishes for your continued success. Be safe.
Thanks. You too, man. Thank you so much. Send me a link when it comes out and I'll share it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And if there's any links that you would like me to add to my show notes, just email them to me and I'll make sure that I add them.
Cool. Yeah, my website's fine. The people can find everything I do from there. All right.
That was more fun than I thought it'd be. And I'm so thankful for Jeff agreeing to talk with me. Of course, Christmas and the many other winter holidays are still about compassion, love, and family. But it also has a dark side, and I think we both feel it's important to acknowledge that especially its historic origins. Both have their place, their purpose, so keep that in mind when you celebrate the season. There are still quite a few people who are struggling to survive these months, be it food or heat and shelter. Not to mention that there are very real monsters out there who take advantage of this time of year. So please, stay safe, stay warm, and by all means, have a truly happy holiday. From me and my family to yours. I appreciate every one of you and look forward to talking to you again in the new year. For now, Assalamu alaikum and Namaste. Peace be with you until we meet again. Thanks for listening to me as I've nerded out about stories and beliefs. Join me next week as I journey down the rabbit hole once again by subscribing and listening wherever podcasts are available. Leave me a comment on iTunes. 5-star reviews are always great and help others find the podcast. Also, you can email me at faithandfearpodcast@gmail.com. And lastly, share with others you feel may enjoy or get something out of these conversations. Who knows, maybe then we'll be one step closer to glimpsing the true nature of faith and fear. Music courtesy of Miyu on SoundCloud.com.